You check your bank account on a Tuesday morning. The number is fine. Not great, just fine. You have a steady job. You pay your bills on time. You aren't reckless. You don't have a hidden gambling habit or a secret credit card stuffed in a drawer somewhere. And yet, every single month, the exact same thing happens. The money comes in, and somehow, by the time the next paycheck lands, it's already gone. You tell yourself it's just the cost of living. You tell yourself everyone is in the same boat. You scroll past someone else's vacation photos and assume they must just earn more than you. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But what if the boat isn't sinking from one big leak? What if it's sinking from 12 small ones, all running at once, all so ordinary that you stopped noticing them years ago, hiding in plain sight inside your own daily routine?
Most people assume poverty is simply about income. Earn more, problem solved. But research out of behavioral finance studies tells a very different story. Households earning $80,000 a year and households earning $45,000 a year often end up with nearly identical savings rates. Sometimes the higher earner actually saves less. Researchers call this lifestyle creep, and it shows up across nearly every income bracket studied, from entry-level workers all the way up to surgeons and attorneys. Why does that happen? Because income isn't the variable that determines wealth. Lifestyle is. Every single dollar you earn passes through a filter built from habits you picked up so early and so quietly that you never thought to question them. These habits don't look like financial decisions. They look like normal life. A subscription here, a slightly nicer apartment there, a car payment that felt completely reasonable at the time. None of them feel like the reason you're broke. That's exactly why they work so well. The choices that keep people poor are rarely dramatic. They're disguised as comfort, disguised as reward, disguised as keeping up with the people around you. And because they're disguised, almost nobody goes looking for them. So today, we're going looking. 12 lifestyle choices, hiding in plain sight, quietly draining the wealth you could be building. Some of them will surprise you. A few of them might even sting a little. One of them, choice number 7, is the one almost nobody admits to, even when they already know it's true. Here's the core idea to hold on to for the rest of this video. Poverty isn't usually one bad decision. It's a pattern of small, repeated, socially approved defaults that quietly compound against you year after year without ever announcing themselves. Wealth isn't usually one brilliant decision either. It's the absence of those defaults, replaced with a handful of boring, repeatable habits that nobody applauds you for. The frustrating part is that the poor pattern often feels more responsible in the moment. It feels like enjoying your life, rewarding your hard work, keeping up appearances that seem to matter for your career or your family. The wealthy pattern often feels restrictive, even a little embarrassing to admit out loud, like you're somehow less generous or less fun. That emotional mismatch is the entire trap. It's why financially comfortable people sometimes look, from the outside, almost boring. Once you can actually see the pattern, you can start dismantling it, one choice at a time, starting today, without waiting for some dramatic financial overhaul that never actually arrives. So why do smart, capable, hard-working people keep making these same choices? 3 forces are at work here, and all 3 are backed by real behavioral research. The first is called present bias, a well-documented tendency studied extensively in behavioral economics, where humans consistently overvalue immediate comfort and undervalue future consequences, even when they fully know better. Spending $40 tonight feels real and immediate. Losing $400,000 in retirement savings over 30 years feels abstract, almost fictional because it simply hasn't happened yet, and your brain has never been very good at making the future feel as real as the present. The second force is social proof. If everyone around you leases a new car every 3 years, that quietly becomes the invisible baseline for normal. And stepping outside of it can feel like falling behind, even when it's actually getting ahead. Humans evolved in small groups where matching the group kept you safe, and that same wiring now gets exploited by an entire economy built around visible consumption. The third force is something psychologists call hedonic adaptation. You get a raise, you feel richer for about 6 weeks, and then your spending quietly rises to match your new income, erasing almost the entire gain. This is sometimes called the hedonic treadmill, and study after study finds that most people's reported happiness barely moves even after significant income jumps, because the lifestyle simply expands to swallow it. None of these forces require you to be careless or foolish. They only require you to be human. That's exactly what makes them so effective, and that's exactly why they've kept generation after generation of hardworking, intelligent people stuck in the exact same place their parents started, decade after decade, regardless of how much harder they worked. Let's put real numbers on this, because vague warnings rarely change behavior, but specific numbers usually do. Take a relatively small daily habit, something like $14 a day on coffee, takeout lunch, or a delivery fee here and there. That works out to roughly $420 a month. Invested instead at an average annual return of 7%, which is a conservative estimate for a diversified index fund over a long horizon, that single habit alone becomes over $500,000 across 30 years. $500,000 from $14 a day. Now, take something larger, like leasing a brand new car every 3 years instead of buying a reliable used one and driving it for a full decade. The lifetime difference, once you account for payments, insurance, and the opportunity cost of investing that difference instead, regularly exceeds $200,000. $200,000 sitting in a driveway instead of a brokerage account, quietly losing value every single year. Stack just these two habits together over the same 30-year window, and you're looking at roughly $700,000 in lost potential wealth from two choices most people would describe as completely normal and totally reasonable. This is the part most people skip past, because math feels boring compared to the dopamine hit of a brand new purchase. But the math doesn't care how it feels. The math just runs silently in the background of every single choice you make, whether you're paying attention to it or not, every single day, for as long as you let it. Now let's walk through the 12. Number 1. Financing everyday purchases on a credit card you don't pay off in full. The average credit card interest rate sits well above 20%. That means a $500 purchase you can't pay off can quietly cost you double, just in interest, while you're still using the thing you bought. Number 2. Upgrading your phone every single release cycle. A new flagship phone costs around $1,000. Doing that every year instead of every 3 years quietly costs you tens of thousands of dollars across a working lifetime for a device that does basically the same thing each time. Number 3. Eating out as the default instead of the exception. Cooking at home typically costs a fraction of what restaurants and delivery apps charge. When eating out becomes the daily habit instead of the occasional treat, that gap alone can run into thousands of dollars a year, every single year. Number 4. Driving a financed car you genuinely can't afford. Car payments are one of the most common, quiet wealth killers in this country because the car itself loses value the moment you drive it off the lot, while the loan keeps charging you interest on a shrinking asset. Number 5. Living right at the edge of your income instead of below it. When your spending rises every single time your income rises, You can earn more for 20 years and still have nothing saved because there's never any gap left for wealth to actually grow into. Number 6, paying for subscriptions you genuinely forgot you even have. Streaming services, apps, memberships you tried once, most people are quietly bleeding $50 to $100 a month on subscriptions they could not name if you ask them right now.
Number 7, the one almost nobody admits to. Buying or renting a home that's bigger or nicer than you actually need, specifically to impress people who honestly barely think about you at all. Housing is the single largest expense for most households, and upgrading it for status rather than need can quietly cost hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime, once you factor in the larger mortgage, the higher property taxes, the bigger utility bills, and the furniture you suddenly feel obligated to buy to fill all that extra space. Number 8, treating the phrase, "I deserve this," as an actual financial strategy. Reward spending feels earned in the moment, but when it becomes the default response to a hard week, it quietly replaces the habit of building anything that lasts.
Number 9, never negotiating your major recurring expenses. Insurance, internet, phone plans, even rent in some markets. Most people accept the first number they're given, and that passive acceptance can cost thousands of dollars every single year, for years at a time. Number 10, keeping large amounts of cash sitting in a savings account that earns almost nothing, while inflation quietly eats away its real value every single year. Safety matters, but too much safety for too long is its own slow, invisible cost. Number 11, buying convenience instead of building skill. Always paying someone else for things you could reasonably learn to do yourself, from basic repairs to basic cooking, adds up to a quiet, recurring tax on your own time and money.
Number 12, avoiding investing entirely because it feels complicated, intimidating, or risky, and letting money sit idle in cash for years or even decades. Time in the market is the one resource you can never buy back once it's gone, and the years you spend waiting until you feel ready are very often the most expensive years of your entire financial life, simply because compound growth needs time more than it needs a large starting amount. Here's the counterintuitive part almost nobody expects. The most frugal-looking habit on this entire list can also be a trap. Clipping coupons, buying the cheapest version of everything, refusing to spend on anything at all.
If that saved money just sits in a checking account instead of being redirected into something that actually grows, you haven't built wealth. You've just slowed down how quickly you're standing still. Saving without investing isn't a wealth strategy. It's a slightly slower version of staying exactly where you are. Meanwhile, the choice that looks the most reckless on paper, taking on a manageable mortgage to buy a modest, reasonably priced home instead of renting indefinitely, can actually be one of the more stable wealth-building moves available to an average household, simply because it forces consistent, automatic equity building every single month, whether you feel motivated or not. Frugal and wealthy are not the same word. Sometimes they overlap. Often, they don't. So why don't people notice any of this happening in real time? Because every single one of these habits is reinforced from the outside, constantly. Marketing is built scientifically to exploit present bias, using countdown timers, limited time offers, and one-click checkout buttons specifically engineered to remove the moment of hesitation where second thoughts usually happen. Social media is built to manufacture social proof, showing you curated lifestyles that make your own choices feel inadequate by comparison, even though you're comparing your full, ordinary life to someone else's carefully edited highlight reel. And your own brain is working against you too, because hedonic adaptation means the moment a purchase starts to feel normal, you stop noticing the cost and start craving the next upgrade. Nobody sits down and decides to stay poor on purpose. They just keep making small, forgivable, perfectly normal seeming choices over and over inside a system specifically designed to make those choices feel invisible. And the system gets a little more sophisticated every single year. So go back to that Tuesday morning, checking your account, wondering quietly where it all went. It probably didn't go to one big mistake. It went to 12 small ones, quietly working in the background of an ordinary life, week after week, paycheck after paycheck, year after year. The good news is that none of them require dramatic sacrifice to fix. They require awareness, and then one small adjustment at a time. Pick one from this list today. Just one. Run the real numbers on it, the way we did earlier, and decide if it's actually worth what it's quietly costing you over the next 10 or 20 years. You don't need to fix all 12 this week. You don't even need to fix all 12 this year. You just need to stop letting them quietly run on autopilot in the background of your life. If this kind of breakdown changed how you're thinking about your own money right now, subscribe, because next week we're breaking down exactly what to do instead, one habit at a time, starting with whichever one you just quietly recognized yourself in, and turning it into the first real habit you actually keep.